if you want to introduce yourself, and then I think we're gonna jump in and and honestly, you pick the topic that we'll go into it first. I'll segue, but like pretty much from here, I'm like this is your layout. You lay her down.
Awesome. First of all, love you, dude. Love to see you just out here working it. And of course, always happy to be here. I'm glad to have I'm glad you had me on here. Yeah. I'm Aidan. If that's something, that's a weird way to say it, something to say out loud, but
I love it. I love the monosyllable. I love the one name, just Aidan. Because then we don't have to bleep anything out. Because then it can just be like Aidan. I mean, no one needs to know your last name. I mean, right? Nobody.
yeah, exactly. Well, but yeah. So I did music for the longest time. That was my first love, so to speak. Been doing that for 24 years now. That's so yeah, music a long time, multi-instrumentalist, a bunch of instruments and singing. I've worked primarily in jazz and funk music, but also you mentioned Sonic, so I do a lot of video game OSTs, and particularly I like the music of Sonic, so that tends to be an avenue for me to do that kind of jazzifying. It's a very hot kind of thing right now, right? You have the 8-bit big band, and a lot of jazz is using video game and TV shows and just OSTs in general as a source of improv. But yeah, I do some voice acting here and there whenever that pops up or whenever I get the chance, and then I do comedy. I started comedy in 2019 in Shreveport, Louisiana, or North Louisiana if you're not sure where that is. Then moved to Dallas after college, and I've done a little bit of sketch. I've done doing improv. I focused a lot of improv this past year. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. I've done a lot of comedy, a lot of music, some voice acting, and yeah, just love doing a lot of creative stuff, and always searching for new avenues to do that.
I love that. And tell me though, so when you say kind of, you're a multi hyphenate, you're a talented instrumentalist, artist, comedian, jazz, but like you said, you're a big fan of Sonic, you're a big fan of these, like you said, OSTs, and where does that start? Tell us, take us back to the beginning. Like, where does it start? Like, where does a love for like Sonic start when you're young? Does a love for music start when you're young? How did that develop for you?
So music started because I have an uncle he was a violinist, or really a fiddle player. Played with people like George Strait and Robert O'Keefe. If you're kind of an older country music fan, those names might.
That's impressive. If you don't know who those guys are, you don't know music.
Specifically, like the '80s, like George Strait. There's a couple albums he was on that. So he gave me my first violin, and he was actually a luthier. So the violin I currently use, whenever I get the chance to play, is one that he personally restored himself. Like, he went to Germany and everything, learned from the luthiers over there. He restores a bunch of old violins. He found like an old Czechoslovakian one that he restored, and that was one of the gifts I got for my birthday in high school.
Wow.
So yeah, music definitely started there. There's some music in my family beyond that. Like my mom, she loved music, and she played bass for a while when she was like in late middle school and high school and all that. And yeah, just music was always cool. I don't know. I guess I just gravitated toward it naturally. Really didn't start. It all started with instruments. So I started with the violin, and then like any young teenage boy, I got into like rock music and all that. And so I started learning guitar and all that. Absolutely loved like kind of prog rock bands like Tool, and then got into like Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, Pink Floyd, all those like older bands and everything. And then video, I guess that kind of swings into video games a little bit.
That's perfect, because like I have a video that I'm making a short called the top 10 Fleetwood Mac solos, because I'm trying to add in strategy content about music, because I'm like, obviously I'm just, it's my channel, I do whatever, I'm just posting whatever, having fun with it, but it's but that's the point. But I'm like, I want to dive into that, let's dive into the history of how did they market that, not just that, but it's just the music itself. So it's building that. But anyway, but it's just I love hearing what you're saying. It just just brings that up out of me. So anyway, back to what you said. I'm not trying to. I mean, I want you to go right
No,
back to your point, but I love it. I love what you're talking about. Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good.
We'll edit that out.
You're good, dude. Jazz fusion kind of music nerd rock band.
Anthony Fantano, bro. I'm telling you, once he started talking on the microphone, everyone started. But shout out Santana. But no, that's dope. And so Sonic, man, has some killer soundtrack. Like I absolutely listen to there's a playlist on I have a chill mix playlist, and there's a whole Sonic mix. It's like 45 minutes long called Sonic and Chill. I love it. I think I sent it to you. It's such a vibe, man. And like Green Hill Zone is the best song in that mix. Oh man, definitely recommend checking that out. But like, what Sonic game has the best soundtrack? What's the best? Where's the best music coming from the Sonic franchise?
Ooh, again, yeah. I mean, I could go. That could be a whole podcast in and of itself. But I guess the short answer for that one would be, I'll split it down into. I'll say for the classic, like the old school 16-bit one, I think I'm gonna have to say Sonic 3 and Knuckles. That one just has a lot of great. You have like Sonic 2 is great. That one has Chemical Plant. Sonic 1 is great. It has Green Hill. But Sonic 3 just has so many great ones. You have Angel Island. You have Hydro City. You have a lot of, so Sonic 3 Knuckles is really cool too in that they introduced, for each level is split up. You have a zone, which is the level, and it's split up into 2 parts, which are called acts. Between the first act would usually, so say like for Hydro City, slower, more funky groove, and usually that would be reflect that you can go kind of fast, but you're still having a lot more kind of quote unquote standard platforming, or it's a little more stop and go. When the act 2, the music would be faster and a lot more speedy and a lot more just kind of energized. And still kind of funk, but it would still be very fast, and that was to reflect that usually in the Act 2s, it was more about you going fast and maintaining your speed throughout the level, kind of like flow state kind of stuff, as much as you can. And that was and so I think, I'd say 3 and K.
That's crazy.
Just for bangers, and just for like the fact that, and I'll say the game as a whole.
There's so much depth to that. Yeah. There's so much depth to that, to what you just said. Like, but that's what someone like me, I didn't realize like how much the game, it changes. The music changes during like the experience of like, there's like, and when you that is so fascinating. I don't think like people appreciate that or like realize that about it.
Yeah, especially, I mean, that's the game itself, like that kind of game is, I would say if you're wanting to, it's one of I think the best for 16-bit like silent storytelling, because there's no way to do voice.
No talking in Sonic. That's what people. I was playing, like I said, Sonic Mania, and you're replaying those first 3 games, and there's no talk. I'm like, this is such, and they tell such a crazy, vivid story. I think that's why the newer games can be. When you get into the 3D era, it's trying to be shocking because it's like how like the limitation was kind of the beauty of the original game. So then now you just like.
You had to tell so much through people would say, well, you could tell a lot through the manual, but I mean, the thing is with the game like that, I think the storytelling was so great on its own. You didn't need the manual as long as you kind of knew who the characters were. The story is told wonderfully through the visuals, and as well, even the levels transitions themselves act as story points to get you to the next thing, and nothing is lost because you didn't read the manual or anything.
Yeah, but you said Sonic 2. Shout out to Sonic 2, because Sonic 2 is that was the game, because you could play Tails. We have the original Sega, but man, there's a great No Sleep. We're talking about No Sleep podcast earlier, which is such a good podcast. The No Sleep podcast has a great one of their season enders is a whole story about these 2 kids playing Sonic 2. And then it turns into a straight up horror story. I don't want to give it away, but if you Google Sonic and No Sleep podcast, it's so good because it's just that is one of my favorite episodes of the No Sleep podcast. And I was like, that'd be like me and you playing it as kids. We didn't play, we didn't know each other as little kids. But like if we did, I was like, this would be me and Aidan right now, man. No, Yeah, no, I that's great. So okay, so you're saying the best Sonic game soundtrack is
For the classic era, for the
for the
16-bit era.
classic era, for the classic. Sorry, for the people
No,
out
no,
there
no.
with opinions, with opinions.
Now,
You're right.
here's the
You're right.
thing. Now, here's the
Yeah.
thing. Like that's how the kind of the fandom will split the game. Those kind of they call it the classic and the modern era. That's usually where the split goes. It's the 16-bit games and then the modern games. As far as the modern games go, I think for me personally, I really liked Sonic Unleashed,
Mhm.
which is not the
I'm
usual
listening. I'm
go-to.
listening. I'm just
Yeah, yeah,
closing
you're
something.
good. But no, like
I'll
so
edit this out. I won't.
so it's a it's very it's hard though because there's
Yes.
so many, all of them are so good. I think Unleashed is personally because that was the second Sonic game I owned after Sonic 06. And that was actually the game that actually made me go because it was actually a fun game, but also the soundtrack was just incredible. It's because it would do a lot of it would do stuff with jazz and funk. It would also do, because you're kind of doing this big world adventure, it was really focused heavy on bringing in different influences from across the world. So like if you're in the Greek, you're in like this kind of Greek inspired area. There's a little more, they'll have like accordions in the soundtrack. They'll also kind of have more, there's like a cool night level where they kind of, a lot of Greek music dances are based on like odd time signatures, like a 5/4 or 7/8, because they're based on like these kind of dance movements that are like long, long, short, short, long, long, short, short. That's kind of how their traditional dances worked. So there's that was reflected in the music. Then there's a Chinese inspired area, so there's like the kind of the Chinese violin sound is in there, and then they go to this kind of Middle Eastern, so they kind of like the Middle Eastern clarinet kind of sounds, and just it was very neat that throughout it, wherever you were in the world, the soundtrack would reflect and try to bring in some of the more native sounds from those regions, which I thought was very cool.
And do you
And
think like that's why that's where the success comes from? That it's like such an inclusive like element to the game is that it really is bringing in some things from all over.
I think it definitely, a lot of people, so the part of the game that people don't like would be a cool aspect of the game was it had day and night cycles. And a big
Mm,
part of that game is when it was nighttime, you would turn into this big werewolf version of Sonic with stretchy arms. So it became more about fighting and, beating up enemies and not about getting to the end as fast as possible. And it definitely, it was a hard, it's a hard left in the franchise that hasn't been, it was done one time and hasn't been done since. So
yeah,
it speaks volumes about that. But beyond that, people would say what was great about the game was the presentation is gorgeous. Even to this day, the game is like something like almost 20 years old, because, or maybe it's like 15, like 10 to 15 years old, and it's Pixar, borderline Pixar level like animation for all the people, and
that's
so,
crazy.
and it does a good job of kind of with like in a Pixar mindset, like we're not, no, it's not a caricature, it's just these are just look like well lived in people and everything like that.
Mm,
And definitely just Sonic as a franchise, definitely there is a degree of just always inclusiveness in the sense that he's like an eco warrior. He's just out to save his
it's
friends and all that.
literally a nature, a climate. Sorry, not to cut you off, but like a
Oh no, you're
climate
fine.
warrior because that's what you're doing. You're literally freeing your nature friends. I was just playing that game when you beat up the whatever the big robot Doctor Eggman. Bunch of bunnies come out, and I'm like, it's Captain Planet, but
Yeah.
you're a blue
And
hedgehog.
Well, I think too, it's actually, I watched the video recently because there's very much the Sonic fandom has a lot of, the autistic spectrum people tend to really gravitate towards Sonic and that fan base. And I watched a video on explaining why that was. And I think he really hit it home with the point that Sonic represents freedom, not in the sense of just, living life to the fullest and being in the moment and all that jazz, your life as your true self. And that's why a lot of autistic and gay people as well, and to some extent, tend to gravitate towards this character in this franchise because it's just this true freedom of you get to be yourself with no, no restrictions or feeling like you have to mask or feeling like you have to change yourself for who you are. And I think that's just a big reason why a lot of people come to that franchise and all that.
How popular do you think Sonic is? Like,
And
what's your just a rough? Like, how would you think it's a pop? Like,
I mean, like just
how
how many,
popular it's become?
like you have how many fans it has, or like what metric of popularity?
Like, do
I
you
mean,
feel like Sonic is like known? Like, people know Sonic. Like, it's
I
like
think
he's
if
like
you
up there as like a character.
I definitely think he's on the Mount Rushmore of video game characters. I mean, I mean,
Wow.
he has the silhouette. I mean, if you cut out the silhouette of his head, like most people can kind of tell it's Sonic, right? Like it's. I mean, people would argue is Mario probably more recognizable. I would say I can understand why. Not only was he an older character, he's just kind of the ubiquitous family game character, right? Like everyone has played a Mario game at least once in their life. But I still think people do. I mean, the fact that Sega, at least in the 90s, Sonic was very much like. Nintendo sweated for a second whenever he was, for those first 3/4 games back in the 90s. This is how big and maybe not ubiquitous, but that's how popular the character definitely was at a time. It's definitely still popular now, but now we're not. We're well past the age. We're well past the Sega versus Nintendo thing. Nobody, consoles aren't fighting like that anymore.
No, exactly. And it's funny, while you were talking, I was literally like, I'm gonna go on Google Trends and look up when you were talking about Super Mario Brothers versus Sonic the Hedgehog. And I don't know if you can see my screen. I'm gonna sorry, I gotta go through the whole security rigmarole. The security apparatus. Oh no, okay. Now it's saying I have to like quit and start back again. I don't know if that's worth it. The point is, I'm looking at it and you'll see it. Yeah. Trust me, I'm going to send you a screenshot.
Yeah. No worries.
Well, I mean, we could do it. I mean, we could restart them. The continuous. I mean, it's already recording once. But anyway, I'll share. We'll restart it and I'll share the screen. But it's literally Mario's dominating until about 2017. I'm assuming that's when we first were learning about a new movie comeback. Then 2019, it's given Mario's comes back, and then it's given Mario run for money. Then 2022, it's Sonic blowing past Mario. Then the Mario Super Mario movie came out, and Nintendo had to say what's up. So. But no, Sonic, as of January 2025, Sonic actually has more Google searches than Mario Brothers does. But that's just like over the past month. I mean, it's definitely Mario over the long run, but it's like, I'm looking since 2004.
They definitely were close. I mean, they definitely had it there for a minute. It's kind of funny though. I guess the Minecraft movie.
Oh, here it is.
Shut up. Yeah.
Boom. There you go.
Oh, yeah. Very nice. That is cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
What would you like? Because and I guess that's my point. That it's like how Sonic. What has what makes Sonic so special?
Like I was saying, the
in your opinion,
what makes him special? I think it's the freedom stuff. Back in the 90s, it was kind of the attitude thing, right? Like he was, I guess, the quote unquote bad boy, which and looking back on hindsight, it's kind of silly, but in the 90s, it was a little different. I think what makes Sonic special too, though, is not only does he have the whole freedom stuff. It's just the world is so interesting as a world, right? It's a world that has both. You have both, at least in the official canon we have now. He has both humans and these anthropomorphic animals. He has crazy godlike creatures. You have people that are so smart they can create these insane inventions. It's a world that has, multi-dimensions and everything, and time travel. these magical emeralds that can make anything happen with a thought, which is definitely not a steal from Dragon Ball Z, not at all.
Yeah. And those emeralds would go or make, dude, those rappers would love those emeralds, bro. You know how many rappers would pay buku bucks for emeralds that are blinging like that, my guy? I'm just saying. That's bedazzled. But no, that's such a good point. There's so many fascinating elements to it. It's crazy.
And I think too, it's just the, I think, people would say it's, well, that's another thing too. Like so he had comics, right? Like Mario didn't really have comics. He had some, but it definitely didn't really take on as strong as Sonic. And they actually had, at least as far as like a video game character and the Archie series, they had the longest running comic book of any video game character like today. Like in the Archie series is like I don't remember exactly when it ended, quite I think in the early 2010s maybe, I'm not sure, but yeah, no, it was like it's crazy. And some of those stories, it's there's jokes that it's basically just kind of a soap opera but with Sonic characters, but they also had they had their own stories that people still go back to this day and say it was some of their favorite parts of the franchise outside of the game. And it still actually to this day even still has like a comic book. They still have a comic book going with the IDW.
I did not know it was the longest like running comic book. But is it with IDW? Is that who they publish comics with?
So it was originally Archie. That's the one that ran the longest.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like Dick. Do you remember Dick? DIC. That's what I thought you were saying. Sonic is published by. I was gonna say, oh my god, that old like Inspector Gadget. That's also the Archie. So basically, Riverdale was publishing Sonic comic books. That's dope. Dude, those Saturday morning cartoons used to slap, man. Like Sonic was, you know what I mean? I mean, I was Shadow the Hedgehog was personally my favorite game. That was the one I loved. But like, I just think, and I guess like, what's your experience with the Sonic fandom? Are you like a card carrying member? Or, like, what's like the world of Sonic on like? Can you introduce us, a layperson, to the world of Sonic on social? What's the fandom of Sonic like? What's the depth? Are there conventions? Are there places where people get together and they high five about Sonic? Tell us more, Aidan.
Actually, there's a big convention that I've actually gotten to go to and volunteer with twice now here in Texas, called Sonic Expo. Highly recommended, even if you're not like a big fan of the games per se. It's just a fun con. It's a lot of fun. A lot of cool people. They bring in a bunch of artists. They have a bunch of voice actors that you can go meet and everything. They run a bunch of cool panels. They this last year they did a big rave, which was a lot of fun. They had a concert with so there was after the Genesis, there was a console called the Sega Saturn. It didn't do very well. Most people don't even know it existed. But on there was a game called Sonic R, and it was a big racing game. And there's this the lady who was singing on that track. Her name was T.J. Evans, and it was a bunch of like kind of disco-y kind of music. It was kind of more disco-like in a way, but a lot of that music was it still was banging fire soundtracks. So yeah, they were able to get her to come do a show, which was super cool. Yeah, the fandom as a whole, though, it's interesting because if you saw it from just the online, like especially like any online space, the negativity tends to rise to the top, unfortunately. So from an outside perspective, it looks like the Sonic fan base is just a bunch of yelling about.
It gets spicy. It gets spicy in there, right?
Especially the goofy details, like how long his quills are, or just speaking to death about like Sonic 2006 was lost, but there's just a lot of that. But there's also, but when in person, or just if you got past kind of the rage bait, so to speak, there's just a lot of cool, passionate people. And I think that's another thing that's really, I think, one of my favorite things about the Sonic franchise and just Sega in general is that there's a lot of fan content and creations, games included, that are just absolutely spectacular. Like,
Absolutely.
there's a lot of fan musicians, myself included. There's like a fan game called Sonic. So there's an original 8-bit game called Sonic Triple Trouble. A fan went in and rebuilt. I don't know if he built it from the ground up, but he remastered it into the 16. A fan went in and rebuilt. I don't know if he built it from the ground up, but he remastered it into the 16-bit version, into a 16-bit version that is just it's basically like as good as the original official Sonic 1, 2, 3, and K and all that.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's crazy that someone loves a game so much that you literally can someone created the game for you to play, and then someone said, I'm going to recreate it to play. And I mean, isn't that like the highest form of, like, literally the highest form of flattery, right? It's copying, right? So, like, that's like the ultimate. Like, someone literally just made your game, and then you're like, but I did that. That's like, I love it, and I'm gonna that's like, I think that says a lot to the level that the game has impacted people. Because, like, when you go to these events that you're talking about, like, what happens there? Like, what goes down? Like, what's that like? Is there like a process to get vetted to, like, even volunteer there? Do you have to, like, have like a certain level of Sonic knowledge?
Maybe if you were gonna have to do like a panel, like, and usually the panels are done by like content creators and more of the notable, I guess, figures of the Sonic fan base or whatever. But as far as like volunteering, I mean, they have a submission form. Last year I was security, which was actually a lot of fun because I just got to incidentally meet a lot of the actors and content creators and all that, because I just was, I have to walk around behind the scenes and everything. But they had everything. You could do security, you could help. They had a karaoke room. You could be put on that and help run that. You could be just in the panel room helping, with that. If you were good at like sound and audio stuff, you could be there in the big room helping, like, during the DJing and raving. If you had enough experience, they let you help on that, though.
So that was all organized. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go. Finish, please.
I was just gonna say, a good friend of mine, he was actually like, he really was like, knows his stuff about sound mixing and lighting and all that. So he was like the main head on that. But no. What was your question?
No, I was just gonna ask, like, but like, is it organized by, like, is this like official? Is Nintendo organizing this? Who's organizing that? And how'd you like volunteer?
Yeah, no, that's what's so that's what it's all to say. What's cool about Sega is as long as you're not like making money directly from it or like not profiting off it directly, they usually leave you alone. Like, they don't really care. Versus Nintendo, like, if you just even if you make like a YouTube playlist, they'll sue the hell out of you, which is nuts. But so,
wow. So so this is completely fan put on. There's no Sega sponsorship, nothing. And this happens. Where does this go down?
Usually in November. It's like the second or third week in November. The past year it was in Mesquite. It was at the Mesquite Convention Center. But yeah, if you just search Sonic Expo, it'll pop up, and yeah, they'll have links to either tickets, or if you want to volunteer, they're always happy to have people come and help. Yeah, and like I said, it was like November. I think it's November again this year.
Wow. Is everyone running around dressed up like Sonic, or?
Oh yeah, there's definitely lots of cosplays, and some of it's Sonic, some of it's, there's other video game characters. Like, there's anime, there's other video games, there's it's from everything from just somebody in a Sonic onesie to somebody with like the most intricate, My Hero Academia cosplay. It's all there on full display. And they actually have like
excuse for My Hero Academia with these people. Any excuse for My Hero Academia.
1,000% always. And they had a big hall that was called Artist Alley. So there's a lot of small, independent artists who will make They'll make keychains. They'll make posters. They'll make, body pillow covers. They'll make, just anything and everything is there. If all these independent creators and all that. So yeah, it's usually that's what's going on. They'll like have panels about. So it's funny you mentioned the Saturday morning cartoons, which actually did tie into a lot of those characters from those Saturday morning cartoons would go into the Archie series, and that's so
wow.
Yeah,
that's dope. That's dope. I mean, that's cool. So you're literally, it's literally a convention. It's literally a straight up like it's a Sonic Ren Fair, literally.
Basically, just about that much. Yeah, they had like a maid cafe that you can go to. They have, if there's some small, like I guess if there's someone that's just like, if I want to sell my art, they have like a small little art gallery you can do that in. There's, like I said, there's karaoke. They actually have a video game room.
That's fun. That's awesome.
They got a giant video game room where they had Dreamcast set up. They had a Sega Saturn. They had they would actually do like little like tournament shows where like you could go and watch people like either play Sonic like maybe Sonic Racing or Sonic R or any of some game like that. And then it is a good time. I highly recommend if you have any vague video game interest. It's a good time.
Oh yeah. All right, so switch up time. What's your biggest gripe? Like, what do you think is the biggest? What is your biggest hate about? Let it out. Let the world know. What has Sega done, or what do you not like? What is like your biggest around the fandom, around Sonic, around the topic of Sonic? What's like the biggest gripe you have? What don't you like?
I guess I don't like the. It feels like every time like there's a stride with the character, it just seems like it's always the other shoe drops, something has to go wrong kind of thing. Though it seems like in the recent years maybe they're finally getting that right, and that's probably just a holdover from the quote unquote dark years where like they had Sonic in the Black Knight where he's swinging a sword around with the Wii mode, or he's running around. It sounds cool, but it doesn't play cool at all. It's not fun. So I guess that's the only. It's just it would be nice if it was more consistent. Like I think that's what everybody really liked about Mario, right? Like you knew the consistent quality, even if maybe it was a safer franchise. They're not taking on God usually. I guess I wish the lows weren't so low for the franchise because they can get pretty low.
Yeah. No, I always thought Sonic was a franchise that could have taken itself more seriously sooner. It would have where it is now. It could have been probably, but they didn't have right. Where was the strategy? Where was the vision? You can definitely tell like the movie was something. Even if you think about the rollout of that movie, right? They were, how they trotted out that terrible design at first, right? And they had to try to clearly there was just such an afterthought, I think, to grow into franchise or like as like a whole of what Sonic could be. So it's like I'm glad that someone righted the ship over there because man, they could have printed money.
I guess that's one gripe I guess I have is that it would have been nice if they just went fully animated with the movies. I understand why they didn't because you got to make money somehow, and actors that are recognizable is how you get parents into the seats and all that. So. I get why they did what they did, but I feel like it's an animated cartoon character. Just go fully animated with that mess.
That is honestly, they should. I love that. Well, they should do it like the Spider-Man, do it alongside. Oh, yeah. You can have like a multiverse. Like, I mean, honestly, that's like a great idea. I never even thought about that, but you're like absolutely right. Like, why wasn't the Sonic movie animated? I never thought about it until you just said that. Oh man, and I just watched the second one. Like a month ago. I haven't seen the first one yet. I don't know which streaming was on the second. It was fun. I want to see the third one with Idris Elba.
Yeah, I would say.
Oh no, that's good.
You get it's a Keanu show.
Keanu, yeah. Love Keanu.
Yeah, I would say you could skip the first one. It's not that it's bad. It's just the second one's perfectly fine to start at. There's not really much you miss on the first one. But yeah, the third one's a lot of fun. That one's definitely a lot of fun, and yeah, I would say that was just my only gripe with the franchise. Like you said, if only they had this confidence and this consistency, like at least starting from like 2010.
What's your love? What's the biggest I love heart? Like, what I love. What about? What's like your? Yeah, what do you love the most about Sonic?
I mean, the music is really, it has to be up there. The music is just great. I don't, yeah, just like, I don't know, like he's a fast, speedy blue rat. I don't know. He's a fun character. He, I always am happy when I see that, this dumb, speedy blue rat running around. I don't know, like, he's just fun. I like it. I don't know.
Dude, everyone called it a Naruto running, but I'm like, that's Sonic, bro. Like, yeah, that's
he predates. He does predate Naruto, so that's true.
Sonic, definitely was sprinting. So Naruto or whatever people want to call it could do whatever people
ninja run.
As if it's 2017. Let's go raid Area 51, guys. Come on, it's fun. Oh my gosh, what a the fact that we're like that's a dated reference is hilarious. Like that, we're gonna be like, that was a thing. It was.
Oh my god.
Google that.
You gotta bring back what was it, the wine stopping lady and all that. Just bring back all the classic Vine memes and everything.
Oh my gosh, man. Dude, it's crazy. Bo Burnham got to start on Vine, man. Look where he's at now. That guy's making it. Isn't that crazy? But yeah, no, I love that. I mean, any other thoughts on Sonic? Anything else? This is your time, man. Any other soapbox moment for Sonic, man? Let it out. This is your moment.
Yeah,
you're doing great so far. I think this has been a great conversation about it. So thank you. This has been, I love it.
Oh,
a lot of good
having
bits.
A blast. Yeah. No. Yeah.
You're teaching me. Seriously, I'm learning.
I think the French. I guess last thoughts are. I think the franchise has finally found its good footing. Sonic Frontiers was maybe not. It's definitely an unpolished mess at times. They basically even admitted it that this is basically just a global playtest, but. If Shadow Generations is supposed to be an indication, I think the franchise is finally on its right footing, and I think no better time to be a Sonic fan than now, except maybe in the 90s.
Yeah, when it first came out. Oh man, I went to quick side story about Sonic before we move on. I went to the Comic-Con in 2023, and there was a Sonic pop-up bar, like a restaurant. I think I sent you a picture. It was like a whole pop-up, but you could get the chili cheese dog, I guess, because that's like Sonic's thing. But it's basically just a menu of just like, pretty much Costco food. The Costco food with a theme of Sonic on it, slapped on it with the price tag about $10+. And and it was always a line, man. There was a big line. I was like, okay, Sonic, you're doing it, man. You're here. People like you.
Yeah, that was like the maid cafe that they would have because they did have a maid cafe at the convention. That line was crazy. Like anytime I'd have to do rounds like down that hallway, it was just all the way down, people waiting, and like they would always be asking, how much time is it going to take? I'd be like, you're probably going to be waiting for like 30 to 45 minutes. It's going to be a minute.
People all close together. I hope they're wearing deodorant, please. Oh, man.
Fortunately enough, I made that joke too, but also, it was, I didn't really have any bad BO smells at me, so
Oh, that's good.